Welcome back to Border Patrol Watch. Today we have with us Marianna Trevino Wright, my co-host and my partner in telling the truth about the Border Patrol. And today we've decided, in light of the last podcast, we had Yvonne Nevarez, who is Raymond Matia's niece, or was Raymond Matia's niece until Border Patrol gunned him down. But we decided to share a story with you all today, maybe one or two stories about what Marianna has gone through for many years down in the border in Mission, Texas, McAllen, Texas area. And I just think that, you know, these stories, they never really get out. All the public hears about the Border Patrol is how they're all heroes and they're all wonderful. And this isn't about one Border Patrol agent. This is about the systemicness and the brutality of the Border Patrol. And how when locals don't agree with us, and I know this as a former agent, then we gaslight them and we harass them and we intimidate them so that we get our way and nobody holds us accountable. And Marianna can testify to that. So today, Marianna is going to tell us a story of what happened to her recently when she encountered a very young, naive, new trainee to the United States Border Patrol. This would be McAllen Sector in McAllen, Texas. So Marianna, take it away.
Hi, Jen. Well, you heard about this in nearly real time. It's been a few months now, and I've had a little while to process this. And it was a beautiful evening in February at the National Butterfly Center, about 5:30. So after hours, the center had been closed for 30 minutes. My husband and I drove to the center with our 3 dogs. We went in my car, which Border Patrol knows, and we entered the locked gate. I got out of the vehicle and unlocked the gate, and we drove through, and I locked the gate behind us. And we drove to the river. We have trail cameras throughout the property, and earlier that week, our trail cameras had caught video of a mother bobcat and 3 kits. And so my husband wanted to see if he could set up his camera equipment and maybe catch the bobcat family coming out. They're crepuscular, so they come out at, you know, around dusk and around dawn to do their hunting.
Mm-hmm.
I took the dogs for a walk. So the dogs and I do this routinely. The property, I'm going to describe the layout a little bit just so listeners can get a picture.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine a rectangle, and on the south end is the Rio Grande.
Mm-hmm.
On the north is the levee and the Mission Main Canal. On the west side is a U.S. Fish and Wildlife tract that's fenced. And on the east side is our neighbor's property, Rhodes property, and it is also fenced. So we're parked at the river, and I decide to hike the main road north back to the levee, and the dogs are off leash. I should also note that I am armed, and I carry a handgun with me at all times.
And you're the executive director of the Butterfly Center, so you have every right to be there at all hours.
I have every right to be there at any hour, and have even been called out there after hours by Border Patrol, by U.S. Fish and Wildlife Fire Department, by Mission PD, by others. So, but I'm armed usually for wildlife. We have had bear, mountain lion, and javelina at the center. Now, the bear and the mountain lion you rarely see or see evidence of, but the javelina are an everyday occurrence. They're permanent residents. And javelina, in case people don't know, are a pecuary, like a pig, and they have tusks, and they're stout, they're powerful. And if one of them should get hold of one of my dogs, it could probably, you know, kill one of the dogs.
It's sort of kind of like a wild pig, but a little different, but kind of like a wild pig.
Yeah. Imagine a wild hog. So The dogs take off running north with me, and we get to the levee where there was a Border Patrol agent in their truck on the levee when we entered. So they observed us. I get to the levee now, and there are 2 Border Patrol agents stationed there in their vehicles. And they're, you know, parked head to toe, talking, hanging out, observing. Then we turn toward the east, and we walk basically along the levee at the base of it to the neighbor's property, where I encounter another Border Patrol agent. This one is driving in their unit, and they're dragging tires.
Mm-hmm.
You want to tell people what the dragging tires is about?
Dragging tires is behind your vehicle is a way to erase the sign, meaning the footprints from the previous shift's traffic, so that you know when somebody has crossed during your shift, so that you know that it's fresh signs.
The youngest of my trio of canine companions, Frankie is still being trained. Frankie likes to chase cars. Yeah. So Frankie takes off onto the neighbor's property, chasing this Border Patrol unit, and he's barking, he's going crazy. Ranger usually initially joins and then comes back. So for 5 minutes, I'm yelling and clapping and calling Frankie back. So the sun is going down, and my husband did ask me to be back to him at dark. So we turned to walk along the river, headed back west. And I put my phone away at this point because it's too dark to get good pictures. We're nearly back to the wetland area, and the dogs hit on something, and they're at a tree, and all 3 of them are barking and snarling and, you know, jumping and just growling. And I think this is it. They found a javelina. So I draw my handgun, and like an idiot, I'm talking to the dogs. What you got there, boys? What is it? What's going on? And I'm approaching, thinking I'm going to have to shoot a javelina. But whatever it is staying put. There's no run, there's no chase. The dogs aren't whelping.
And you can't see anything, right? It's completely covered with brush.
I can't see anything.
Or grass or whatever.
Yeah, the grass is high, the shrubs are high, the trees are bushy and full. So as I'm walking toward this activity and talking to the dogs, very slowly, this figure rises from the base of the tree. At that point, my talk changes dramatically. And
was it a member of MS-13?
No, it was not.
Was it a cartel member?
No, it was not.
Was it a migrant crossing the border illegally?
It was not a migrant hiding in the brush, waiting to be retrieved. Nope. I couldn't make out who or what it was, and I didn't know that it was just one person. So I start yelling, "Don't move. I have my weapon drawn. I will shoot. Do not approach me. The dogs will not hurt you if you do not move." I'm yelling out these warnings as I approach with my 9mm aimed at this figure. The figure stays basically up against the tree and slowly raises his hands against his body and unzips his jacket.
Did you shoot him? Because Border Patrol would have shot him for that, like they did Mr. Martinez. I shouldn't laugh, but I mean, you know, they ordered him to.
They probably would have.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
I ordered
and
him
then said you had a rock in your hand. Yeah.
Probably. So slowly unzips his jacket, and now I'm close enough to see that it is Border Patrol green. And as he's unzipping his jacket, he opens it, exposing his body camera, which was concealed under his jacket and zipped up. He slowly then lifts his hands and removes the hood of his jacket. And again, he's doing all of this very slowly, drops his hands again at his sides.
Did he say anything to you while he's moving, doing this, or he's just looking at you and you're looking at him?
I don't recall him saying anything. And, remember, the dogs are still, and lunging and teeth gnashing and all of that at him. And as I can see that he's Border Patrol and he's standing still like that, I put my weapon back in my pocket and I started talking to the dogs then. It's okay, come here. At this point, I notice my husband has come running and Bella goes to him.
Yeah, Bella's your oldest, right?
Bella's my oldest, who's the last line of defense. She rarely leaves my side. She lets the other two be the advance men. So at this point, we're triangulated. My husband is over here, I'm over here, and the Border Patrol agent is up against the tree, and the two male dogs are still at him. And I'm, talking them down. I'm asking him, who are you and what are you doing here? And he gives me his name. His name is Marshall Pierre. And I recognize his accent. He's from New Orleans. And, I've never, in 12 years at the National Butterfly Center, I have never encountered an agent concealed like that on the property, observing me or anyone else. And I have spent a lot of time out there early in the mornings and late at night. I'll go out there for full moon. If my husband and I have a spat, I might take a 6-pack of beer out and start a bonfire,
Yeah, it's your getaway place. It's your sanctuary.
It is my getaway place.
Yeah.
And one of those times, I remember I went into the woods to water a tree and ran into an agent who was walking the property. His name was Achilles. So I've never forgotten his name.
Yeah.
The only issue there was I was hoping he had not seen me with my pants around my ankles. But
so the issue isn't that the agents are on the property, because they're regularly on the property, and you've been out there for over about a dozen years, a dozen years now. And so this is a normal experience for you, but it's not a normal experience for an agent to be lying in wait. And in the Border Patrol, we call that laying in. So when you're laying in on a group, it's because you think you have prior information that somebody's come in through that area in that way. And so typically that's why you would do something like a lay-in.
As I'm talking to this agent, and as you said, in 12 years, I've never had this experience. Agents always approach, whether they're walking or in their truck or SUV, on horseback, on bicycle, on dirt bike, on ATV. I mean, we have them by all manner out there on the property, and they announce themselves. So I found it very odd that this one did not. He explained to me that he'd only been an agent for a month. He was out of the academy only 1 month. So he's a brand new baby agent.
He's a trainee. He's not even off his probationary status then. So that tells me like he's not even supposed to be out there by himself. He's supposed to be out there with his group of trainees and field training officers.
So, yeah, he's all by himself. And
Let me ask you this though, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but is it normal to have them stationed so much around the property on all four corners like that? Or did it feel like that was more? Because I remember when I visited you, we met two Border Patrol agents up on the road there and talked to them for a little while, but that's all we saw that night. It seems kind of like they have a perimeter around set up around you. And for me, as a former intelligence agent and doing operations, and I was a field training officer, it sounds like they told him, you're going to go lay in here and wait for something. But the agents that are around are listening to his radio and waiting for him to call them in. So it sounds like a lay-in operation on the National Butterfly Center's property.
that is the only thing that makes sense to me. And the helicopter was hovering above at this time also. By the time I noticed Matt had come running and Bella had gone to Matt, the helicopter was overhead.
Yeah,
So
and to
we
call in
were-
air support, that would suggest too that it was an operation as well.
So, we're, like you said, completely surrounded. And I asked him, what are you doing here? And he says, well, they told me I had to do this. They told me that I needed to, basically skulk onto the property into a position to follow you, to observe you.
You
And
specifically?
that's what he said.
So this is an operation and you are apparently the target of the operation. That, I will tell you this, and I have this from experience of my classmate when I was a trainee and then other trainees. The only thing more unwelcome than, say, women and gays in the United States Border Patrol is a Black man or Black woman. They have a few, but they always keep the numbers graduating through the classes at a minimum, just kind of like the same way they do with the women. I remember my classmate, he was referred to as the N-word trainee. And then I was, of course, the bitch trainee, and he was the only Black agent at the station because we were at a very small station in the East County Mountains of San Diego. And I was the only woman at the time there, and they hated us. And so our training officers didn't want to train us. And a supervisor took us under the wing, and they made us do these lay-in ops that you're describing that could have gotten us killed. They made us lay in the snow for 13 hours a night until we were both so cold, and being trainees, we didn't have the money for the uniforms, the extra uniforms other than the basic uniforms. And him and I would have to spoon each other to stay warm all night. And one night I remember he told me, Jen, they're trying to kill us. Think about it. I'm the only Black here. You're the only woman here. And so it's rough on the Black agents. And so this sounds exactly like what I went through as a trainee, but fortunately we didn't end up in a circumstance like you're talking about.
So from wherever he would have entered, to be, whether he was, running down low or crawling or on his belly or whatever. So when you visited, everything is thorny. We've got fire ants, we've got stinging nettle, we've got ticks, we've got chiggers, the little red bugs that are a plague. Yeah, we've got
I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't want to do that. But
we've got rattlesnakes and coral snakes on the property. So, he says he's been ordered to do this, apparently by himself, 1 month out of the academy. And he was not, from what I gathered, told about my dogs.
Yeah.
Which, if he had reacted differently than he did, absolutely could have harmed him. And I don't believe he was informed that I would be armed. And, you said they referred to you as the bitch agent. I'm the butterfly bitch. We know that's how Border Patrol refers to me. So we need t-shirts, bitch 1 and bitch 2. I did. I thanked him for not shooting my dogs.
Did he ever draw his weapon?
he never drew his weapon.
Okay.
He said, "Oh no, ma'am, I love dogs. I have dogs. I would never." Um, because if you raise your hands to dogs or make
They
sudden
think you're going to
movements,
swat at them. Yeah. Yeah.
exactly. But he knew to move very slowly, to keep his hands very close to his body and all of that. I asked if he knew where he was. He said yes, it was the Butterfly Center, and that he had hoped to visit there at some point because his mother loves butterflies.
Sure.
Yeah. And I said, you're
After he's
always,
done drinking and having a great time, like every young Border Patrol agent is. Oh, come on. Give me a
so I
break.
said, you're always welcome. If your mother comes to visit, bring her.
Yeah.
You know, for Christmas or her birthday, come shop at our visitors pavilion.
Imagine if you shot this guy, Marianna, what the immediate response. I mean, the number one thing that we do is, number one, we call out our cover-up teams. They would have made sure that, they would have made sure that they made you out to be the one who was in the wrong there, that you just came up upon this young agent and shot him down, and how, you don't allow them on your property, and, because they're documenting. I mean, well, let me go back. You don't allow them on that property because they refuse to close gates. You used to allow them on the property, and you don't have a problem with Border Patrol enforcing laws and the agents doing what they're supposed to be doing on your property, is my understanding. It's just that they keep messing up the property and not closing the gates and stuff like that. Correct?
That's exactly right. By law, they have authority to enter all private property within 25 miles of any US border without warrant. The law does not state that we have to give them access or provide it.
Right.
So, for years, they did have their locks on our gates and on our chains, but they kept leaving the gates open. They kept skipping our lock and locking us out of our own property.
Right.
And I'd have to call for assistance, and someone may or not come. So then we just bought bolt cutters, and we just, every time we encountered that, we just cut their locks off. But, for more than 5 years, we tried to devise solutions for that.
Right.
Well, it's not difficult. The solutions are obvious. We only had problems because either the agents are too stupid to know what to do, or they're
just disrespectful. I think they're not that stupid.
they don't care to do the right thing, or they're doing it deliberately to make a point, to harass or intimidate, or just
I could see it happening from time to time if you're rushing somewhere, and then if you get called out on it, then you come out and apologize and talk to the agent, make sure it doesn't happen again, and this kind of stuff. But my understanding is they're not doing that kind of stuff. They're just like, yeah, whatever. Did he know who you were, in as far as like the bitch butterfly lady or butterfly bitch? Did he know that that's who you were?
So he knew he was at the Butterfly Center, and I wasn't 100% sure he knew who I was until he asked, "Why do they hate you so much?"
Meaning the Border Patrol agent. So he's been told that you're a problem.
He's been told something, and obviously pretty negative. And I said, "Who hates me? Like your command, or your fellow agents, or your supervisors?" And he said, "Not command." Basically, I guess that he'd heard this from,
yeah, because he's so new. He's not going to be talking to command. Doesn't care about trainees because they come and go, so they won't invest in them. But and as far as like talking to them and developing relationships, they wait until they pass probation. So that makes sense to me. But what I'm reminded of is our last podcast that we did with Mr. Matia's niece, who we were talking about earlier. That was just, he was gunned down. Mr. Matia was. And you had mentioned priming the pump. That's exactly what they're doing to you in this situation. If that's in fact what this young man, I mean, and it seems to be from his own statements that this is what's going on, is that he was told by his field training officers and other agents that have more time in, that you're the butterfly bitch and that they hate you. So, and then
Well,
they tell him to go lay in on the property that you're an executive director of.
well, or they could be spreading the same sort of lies that we know, allies of Border Patrol, like we build the wall and
Well, yeah, they do the same thing that all their sycophants do. They lie and they spread rumors about people. If you don't completely support the Border Patrol down here on the border, then they just rail against you. I mean, even the Border Patrol Union has done several podcasts on what I do and stuff, and yet they've never met me. They have no idea, what I'm about or my history or any of that. Unless I wanted to look at my files in the Border Patrol, then they would learn who I am. But they just automatically go on the attack. So I think that's really interesting. This guy's been there a month, and yet he knows all this stuff about you.
I don't know if he's just been told ugly things about my personality, or, what they believe, that I hate law enforcement, or if he's been told that I'm a human trafficker, that, the same things that Brian Colfage and them said about me, that we're suing them for, that I'm selling women and children into sex slavery. And
that's the We Build the Wall people, right? Yeah, the
that's
fake
the
wall.
We Build. Yeah, they
Yeah.
targeted the Butterfly Center and me with malicious, false, defamatory statements to boost their fundraising. They raised over $25 million. And later this month, Brian Colfage has to report to federal prison for his role in this fraud. But they used me as a pawn in that. They targeted me,
Yeah,
and held me up as though I'm some evil mastermind or the queen of the South, using the property for these illegal and
weren't you assaulted by one of their sycophants too?
I was assaulted by MAGA.
Border Patrol told her that you were smuggling children for sex trafficking, and she came to the Butterfly Center and assaulted you because of what the Border Patrol said or something.
Yeah, she came and demanded to see the dock and the deflated rafts and the dead bodies that were littering the Butterfly Center, which is all false. And she came to pick a fight. But yeah, so it was such a bizarre experience. And the young man was so nice. And I did ask him, why Border Patrol? He told me he was fairly fresh out of the U.S. Marine Corps, and the Border Patrol was the first to call and offer him a job. So
of course they were.
So he joined Border Patrol, and I asked if he liked it, and he said, well, he hoped to go OPR. He wants to be a part of the Office of Professional Responsibility. And I laughed. I said, oh God, that's even worse than being,
you just covering up Border Patrol misdeeds. Well, I mean, you may not be doing the killing, but you have to cover up for all the killings. So
I did. I said, that's even worse. Don't do that. I said, how, as a Black man in the United States, can you do this job? I said, don't you know that 150 years ago, we were hunting you? We were hunting your ancestors. We were hunting Black people in the wilderness, with dogs, with guns.
And we still do if you're Haitian. So, the only reason why he's got the uniform on and we're not hunting him with his fellow Border Patrol agents is because he was born in the United States. That's the only reason.
I do think they set this in motion, dispatching this brand new baby trainee agent by himself after me when I have a handgun and the dogs.
And they all know that you're armed.
And they know that I'm armed. It's been in the New York Times, me with my pistol in my pocket.
Did you hear from any managers or from his field training officers or supervisor or patrol agent in charge or field operations. I think they call field operations supervisors watch commanders now. It could be wrong. But at any rate, did you hear from anybody in like, hey, let's talk about what happened so this doesn't happen again. Let's figure, I mean, that's just the common sense thing to do, right?
Absolutely no one from the agency, not even the lowly border community liaisons who are like
Right.
officer friendly of the Border Patrol. Not even one of those people reached out to me or came to the Butterfly Center or did anything to follow up after this incident. The follow-up came from me. Not only did I reach out to Marshal Pierre on social media, but I also, I Googled him to see if I could find a home address or something in maybe New Orleans where I could send a letter. And what I found instead was his father, who happens to be in law enforcement. His father is the police chief at Holy Cross University in New Orleans. So I called his father. I called the police department of Holy Cross, and his father answered the phone.
Wow.
Yeah. And I said, is this Marshal Pierre? Yes, ma'am. How may I help you? And I said, well, I'm trying to get in touch with your son. Is he a U.S. Border Patrol agent, in the Rio Grande Valley sector, blah, blah, blah. And he was like, why would I tell you anything? What do you want with my son? I don't know you from Adam, type thing. And I said, well, I'm the woman who held your son at gunpoint on.
Oh, I bet his heart just sunk.
He flipped out.
Yeah.
He flipped out. You did what? You drew a weapon on a federal law enforcement agent. I'm calling the Department of Justice. I'm calling my congressman. You will be held responsible. He
Really?
flipped out. Oh, yeah. And I said, please.
Don't even want to hear how this happened. He's just going to go ahead and just assume that you're guilty. Sounds like a good cop.
Yeah. Very rational man.
Yeah.
Who's hysterical? And I know Border Patrol did not count on me being so cool, calm, and collected.
Well, and in defense of his father, I mean, I understand it's his son, and he, he's worried about it. And then here's the woman calling him, so he doesn't understand why you're calling him. But then you have to explain how this happened, and that his son was kind of, I don't know if it was a setup, but it sounds like a setup to me.
Yeah, no, I can understand dad flipping out. I'm saying in Border Patrol dispatching the young Marshal and using him as bait or a sacrificial lamb or whatever the intent was, they did not count on me not shooting him. They did not count on me being calm, cool, and collected. They don't know that I've been handling firearms since I was 6 years old, and have had lots and lots of wilderness experience and, with wild animals and others. So the last thing I'm going to do is shoot any human.
Did he say why they told him to go and lay in there?
He did not.
Yeah.
He said just, to observe, to follow and observe. And me. And so,
and you're not undocumented, and you're not smuggling, and you work there at the Butterfly Center. Okay.
And have for the last 12 years. What I am is, the executive director of an organization that is a plaintiff against U.S. Border Patrol, Customs and Border Protection, and the Department of Homeland Security. I have for about a decade documented their misdeeds.
So just like Mr. Mattia, then you've documented misconduct by Border Patrol agents. And I think we talked about this. We talked about this on the phone after Mr. Mattia's death. And it's like, proximity to the border, priming the pump about you, like they did with Mr. Mattia, who has proximity to the border, has a justified reason to be there. And then some kind of bullshit operation to create a reason for them to be there, to target, in Mr. Mattia's case, Mr. Mattia, and in your case, you. Marianna, I mean, I think you're lucky that you're alive, to be honest with you, because Border Patrol agents they shoot first and ask questions later, as we can see over and over and over again by all these shootings.
It was a wake-up call for
Yeah.
sure. And I did very much take the entire experience as intended to be life-threatening, if not fatal. At the very least, it was a warning of them showing, look, we can do this to you.
Right.
And that priming the pump, I know that they have spread this kind of animosity and misinformation among other law enforcement agencies, because I had a run-in with a DPS officer, a Texas Department of Public Safety officer, a young agent in a black and white unit, you know, the good guys with the white cowboy hats. And
not the guys with the black cowboy hats, but the guys with the white cowboy hats.
One day I was leaving the center and two staff were leaving the center with me. We were all going to visit a partner who grows plants, native plants for us. And those two ladies were in another vehicle following me. So our two vehicles left the Butterfly Center, and a DPS unit pulled over, lights and sirens stopped the car that was following me. So I pulled over and got out of my car and started filming the incident. And, you know, we were kind of on a little hill. So I walked down the hill to where they were to film what was happening. And the agent's like, oh, well, you know, you failed to stop at the stop sign. You rolled the stop sign. And the driver's like, no, I did not. I saw you were behind me. I made a full and complete stop. And he's like, yes, but you didn't stop before the line.
You didn't stop and get out and run around your car 3 times.
Well, and you know, his whole thing is like, there's a line painted on the street and you have to stop before that.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
You know, we went back there. There's no line painted on the street. It's long been eroded or, you know, whatever. There's no line painted on the street. But then he goes, well, you know, the Butterfly Center is under investigation. There's an investigation against the Butterfly Center. And I'm like, okay, first of all, if that's true, why
do you know?
Yeah. Why is, you know, Johnny patrol officer on the street, one, aware, and two, talking about it? Yeah. I mean, isn't that the #1 rule of investigations, is you don't tell the people under investigation that they're under investigation? I took this job to make the National Butterfly Center a world-class environmental education, conservation, and tourism center. And I'm achieving that.
And in the beginning, Border Patrol is welcome to come in and and they still are welcome to use the restroom if they have to, right? And stuff like that.
We have never turned away law enforcement. In fact, years ago, when then Texas Governor Perry had deployed Texas National Guard to the border, it was the National Butterfly Center that coordinated and hosted a holiday potluck in between Thanksgiving and Christmas at the center for all of those young soldiers who were deployed. Right. And we coordinated that with Texas Military Department, and we were, you know, supporting our troops and all of that sort of stuff. Now, at the last Thanksgiving, I took plates of our own Thanksgiving dinner out to the National Guard on the levee, and they told me they could not accept any food from us that they were told that they could not absolutely take.
They think you were going to poison it or something? What a bunch of don'ts. God.
You know, and I even asked him, I was like,
ridiculous.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. And I even said, like, not even pie, like, you know, I brought you a home cooked meal for Thanksgiving, and they refused that. When I first started at the National Butterfly Center back in 2012, I was regularly invited to the quarterly landowner stakeholder meetings that Border Patrol coordinates and hosts. at the McAllen station. So about every quarter, they would have landowners and landowner agents and law enforcement and representatives of NGOs like the water districts and the economic development corporations and stuff, all attend these meetings. And Border Patrol sets the agenda for these meetings. Sometimes we were meeting new classes of agents, and they all get to introduce themselves and meet us. Sometimes they would have us there so they could show us their propaganda films. Other times we'd be there for, somebody in command's retirement or promotion or something like that, some celebratory event.
And those are good things that they do with the community there so that you know who's on your property. So if, you hear something late at night and you go outside, that, that helps prevent Border Patrol agents from getting shot like this young man might have. So those are common along the border.
Well, and it's also a sound evidence-based practice.
Right.
That community policing works, where law enforcement forges relationships, good, strong, healthy, communicative relationships with community members, with people who live and work there, that communities become safer. Since then, Border Patrol has really scaled back their border community liaison program, from what I can tell. And the last time I was invited to that meeting was November of 2018. And at that point, we had already filed suit against Border Patrol. But they were still inviting me to these meetings. When they developed what was probably the agency's first app, which was basically their See Something, Say Something app, where in real time you could press a button and they would get GPS coordinates of where you were seeing illegal activity. I was a beta tester for that program.
If you see a brown person, push this button, right?
Well, that's exactly how it's currently being used in Maine, which I understand is the only place where the app is actively deployed. And it is being used for exactly that.
Yeah, because Maine's probably predominantly white, I would imagine, in a lot of those towns versus the southern border.
Rural and white, and it's primarily reporting their brown and black and indigenous or Asian residents. So in November of 2018, I was invited to one of those meetings, and it was jam-packed. I'd never been in that classroom, conference room, when it was as full as it was that day. It was standing room only. And I was seated with a friend who had come with me. And, we're just sitting and chatting along with the folks who own the Riverside Club and other people, because we live and work with these people and we attend meetings with them every quarter. So we're just, waiting for the meeting to start. About half hour after the meeting should have started, the patrol agent in charge of the McAllen station at that time, Melissa Lucio, came into the meeting with another agent who I call Lurch. I don't know his name, but he was like 7'7", big old rectangular head. And he stood behind me, and Melissa stood in front of me, and in front of the whole room goes, "Mrs. Wright, I am here to inform you that your invitation to this meeting is hereby formally revoked. You are now trespassing on federal property, and you must leave immediately."
The only thing that had changed is that you had a lawsuit brought against the U.S. Border Patrol for the wall issue, correct?
I had
Which,
a lawsuit.
Really, that's policy. And frankly, these meetings are so that y'all can come in and say, like, your agents are tearing up my road. I can't get down my road, or my cows are loose because your agents cut my fence, or this or that. So there are supposed to be complaints, but because you filed a lawsuit against them, now you're no longer allowed to come to the meetings as a resident, or, the executive director at the Butterfly Center. And so they cut you off. So they're the ones actually that created this animosity. I mean, to file a suit about the wall, a lot of people file a suit about the law. A lot of people, frankly, sometimes you do have to sue the Border Patrol. And I would never be like, I would never be upset at a local saying, you know, I'm going to have to sue you guys because I've incurred damage. And I would be like, okay, you got to sue us then. You know, it's just the system. It's nothing personal, you know, but.
Not only had, and I am not a named plaintiff in that suit. My employer filed that suit.
Yeah.
But I am, of course, the person on the ground supervising staff responsible for recording and relaying activity and incidents. So they actually had me arrested at that meeting. They had McAllen PD come and haul me out of that building, out the back of the building, into the back of a locked squad car.
Where was the McAllen PD there immediately, or did you have to sit and wait for them to call them?
I am really not sure, because when Melissa told me I needed to leave, that my invitation was revoked, I said, you know, Melissa, I was invited to this meeting. I have my invitation. I've been coming for 6 years. I have no intention of leaving now.
Mm-hmm.
And she left, and Lurch
Okay.
left. And then they came back.
Uh-huh.
And that time she leaned over in front of me at the desk and she said, Marianna, you need to leave. Do not make me humiliate you.
But y'all already have.
And
Y'all
yeah.
already come in front of everybody and said this shit. So
Yeah. And I leaned back and I said, Melissa, I think you greatly underestimate my capacity for humiliation. Do what you have to do. And very shortly thereafter, McAllen PD arrived.
okay.
So I don't know if they were in the hallway getting instructions. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know any of those details, but the McAllen police officers, 3 of them came in and surrounded me and then took me out. One of them, he was so nice. I mean, the squad car was an SUV, and you know, I was in a sheath dress and stiletto heels, and they helped me hop up in the car.
Yeah.
And get in. And the officer, the police officer was like, ma'am, I don't understand what's happening or why we're here. You didn't seem to be disruptive or making any trouble. And I'm like, no, I wasn't. This was a stunt. This was the entire purpose of this. The entire purpose of this landowner stakeholder meeting was to show all of the other landowner stakeholders, this is what we will do to you if you speak up or speak out, and to show all of the agents, this is the power we have to push these people around.
People ask me all the time, what's the Border Patrol like? And I mean, it depends on different parts, but I mean, the organization is run like the mafia or the cartel, you know, and the agents have to do literally everything their management is telling them, and anybody who's against them, you know, you're going to pay for it. You're going to pay for it one way or another, whether it's with your life like Mr. Mattia, or whether it's making, you know, you look like embarrassing you in front of everybody, or sending a trainee on your property to encounter God knows what when they know that you're armed. And according to his words, they all hate you. And I'm amazed that you're sitting here and talking to us right now, and not either, you know, that last incident with the young man, Pierre, could have ended up being where you're either sitting, like you said, in a hole for the rest of your life, in prison somewhere, or dead.
Or in a grave, or in a casket.